fellow Toastmasters, if I were to give this speech to you 100 years ago, you would have laughed at me, you would have ridiculed me, maybe you would have punched me, maybe you would have tried to admit me to a mental hospital. Because what I'm about to talk to is sort of an extraordinary idea on its own. So you need to sit up and you need to get your 21st century sort of mind with keeping it open so you can try to experience this idea that I want to propose to you. It's something that I believe in quite strongly, and it's something that I think can be the most useful tool to have in your toolbox for your life. Right? The idea is simple. Our imagination changes our brain. Our imagination changes our brain. Thus, our thoughts and the images we put in our head cause physical rewiring in our brain. That's my point. That's a big statement to make. And I'm not a neuroscientist, although I can cure my own headaches once in a while. So I will not be basing what I say on my own authority. Rather, I got scientific studies to prove my points. We're going to go through quite a lot of stuff here, so I want you to sit up and pay attention, because this is neuroscience after all, so you don't want to miss out on anything. The first realization we have to make here is about the way our brain makes new connections, the way our brain learns things, and that is through association. It was best expressed by Carla Schatz at the Stanford University in a sort of a famous quote when she said, "Neurons that fire together wire together." Let's say a real-world example here, phobias. Phobias are learned fears. You have an experience maybe in your childhood where you connect two things, fear and let's say dogs or elevators or eggshells, and they are linked together. Maybe you're walking home from school, a little schoolgirl, happy jumping in puddles and drawing sort of rainbows on the sidewalk, when a dog jumps out and barks at you, jumps over you, scares the living daylights out of you. What happens there is you have the perception of a dog and you have the intense emotion of fear, and your brain links the two together because it's an emotional experience. This idea of associative learning was proposed in 1949 by a Canadian psychologist named Donald Hebb, but it goes as far back as Sigmund Freud, who was also theorizing about this, but he didn't have the means to prove it. The second realization we need to make, and this is a bit more of a fantastic one, is that our brain cannot differentiate between the real world and the imagined world. To the brain, the signals it gets from our senses when we perceive the real world are exactly the same as the signals it gets when we imagine. Now that's again a big statement here, and I'm going to back it up with scientific fact. But first, before I do that, I want to prove it to you right here, right now, with a little experiment that we're all going to do. So I want you all to close your eyes and imagine that you're holding in your hand a big yellow lemon. See it as vividly as you can. It's big and yellow. You see the pores on its surface, the waxy skin that it has. Now imagine cutting it in half with a knife. Take one of the halves up to your nose and smell it. Remember what a lemon smells like. Sour. Now, even though you might not want to, take the biggest bite you can out of the lemon, sucking all the lemon juice into your mouth. It's horrendously sour. Your mouth is just tensing up. And now notice in your body what's happening. Is there a physical reaction? Are you salivating? Is your mouth tensing up? If you open your eyes again, with a show of hands, how many people here had some sort of physical reaction in their body when they imagined this? Well, everyone. Doesn't this suppose that to our brain, the lemon was real? Our brain chose to prepare our body for eating an actual lemon, but there was no lemon. So we tricked our brain here, because our brain could not tell the difference between imagination and the real world. Now, for the scientific proof as well, there was a study done in 1995 in the Journal of Neurophysiology, where scientists proved that when a person performs a task, the same areas of the brain are engaged as when the person imagines performing the task. They used brain scans to show and measure what's happening in the brain, and this is what they found out. In another study, they had people visualize with their eyes closed the letter A. And they found that the visual cortex of the brain, again using brain scans, was engaged in the very same way as when those people were simply looking at a paper with the letter A on it. So the brain can't tell the difference between the real world and imaginations. And this can be the most useful tool for you, as I promised. I said that, didn't I? So this is the kicker here. Since we learn by association, and since imagination to us is real, we can use our imagination to shape our associations. We can use our imaginations to create the associations that make us strong, confident, get us to the places we want to get. Let's say, for example, you imagine public speaking, being on a stage and giving a speech. And at the same time, you try to feel in your body as intensely as you can a feeling of confidence, a feeling of competence, just feeling great. What will happen is, if you do it repeatedly, is that your brain will start to link those two together. Public speaking and confidence. So that when you think of public speaking, you feel confident. When you think of public speaking, you feel competent and great. Now, I don't have to tell you that this can be applied to all areas, not just public speaking. I mean, you can use your imaginations on any skill you want to learn. So I say, unleash your imagination. It's going to take you places further than you can go without it. So thank you very much.
Definitely something to take home.